For 4 long years, he waited. Every single day, through sun, rain, and snow, he remained in the same spot, eyes locked on the road. He wasn't lost, he was waiting for the family that had once called him their own. He had no way of knowing whether they would return, but hope never left his heart. What happened next would change everything. In the quiet town of Westmont, where life moved at a slow, predictable pace, an unusual sight captured the hearts of its residents. A golden retriever with deep, soulful eyes and a weathered yet still glistening coat had taken up residence in front of an old, abandoned house. No one knew where he came from or why he refused to leave. But there he sat, day after day, staring at the road as if expecting someone to return. At first, the townspeople assumed he was lost. Someone surely would come looking for him. But as days turned into weeks, then months, then years, it became clear this dog wasn't just waiting. He was holding on to something much deeper, a promise, a memory, a love that time could not erase. An elderly woman named Miss Martha was the first to approach him with food and water. He accepted her kindness, but never moved far from his post. Attempts to adopt him were futile. A man named Tom even placed a collar around his neck and gently tried to lead him away. But the dog, whom they started calling Lucky, always found his way back to the porch of the deserted home. It was as if leaving that place would mean giving up. And that was something he simply could not do. Curious whispers spread through Westmont. Who had lived in that house? Where was Lucky's family? The mystery deepened, and while some pitied him, others admired his devotion. Among them was a 7-year-old girl, Lucy, whose heart ached for the dog, who refused to let go of his past. Every day on her way to school, she would stop and watch him. One day, she decided to sit with him, offering a small treat. Lucky hesitated, but eventually accepted it. From that moment, an unspoken bond formed between them. Lucy visited him every afternoon, telling him stories about her day, her dreams, and her love for dogs. Slowly, Lucky began to trust her. He allowed her to stroke his fur, and in those moments, he closed his eyes as if surrendering, even if just for a second, to the comfort she provided. One fateful afternoon, Lucy noticed Lucky seemed restless. Instead of sitting on his usual spot, he walked to the front door of the house and nudged it open. With cautious steps, Lucy followed him inside. The air was thick with dust and silence, untouched by time. Lucky led her to a corner where an old toy box lay forgotten. He pawed at it, pulling out a faded rubber bone with his name faintly etched onto it. Next to it was a pile of black and white photographs. Lucy's breath caught as she sifted through them. There, smiling back at her, was a family, a man, a woman, and a little boy alongside a younger, happier Lucky. Heart pounding, Lucy took the photos and ran home. That night, she and her mother spoke with Miss Martha, who remembered the house's former owners. The Johnson family, she recalled, voice heavy with sorrow. They left suddenly after a terrible accident. No one knew where they went. Determined, Lucy and her parents began a search. They combed through old records, spoke to neighbors, and even reached out online, sharing Lucky's story. The town of Westmont rallied behind them. Weeks passed, and just when hope seemed to fade, the phone rang. The Johnson family had been found. On a cool autumn morning, the town gathered as a car pulled up in front of the old house. A couple stepped out, their faces etched with years of longing and regret. Lucky, the woman whispered, her voice trembling. At the sound of her voice, something shifted in the faithful dog. He hesitated, his heart warring between hope and fear. Then, recognition sparked in his eyes. With a joyous cry, he leapt forward, bounding into their arms. Tears flowed freely as they embraced him, whispering apologies and words of love. "We thought you had run away," the woman sobbed. "We never stopped searching for you." Lucy watched in silence, tears welling in her own eyes. This was the moment Lucky had been waiting for. The town that had once pitied him now stood in awe of his unwavering devotion. As the Johnsons prepared to take him home, they turned to Lucy. "We owe this reunion to you," Mr. Johnson said. "Lucky is part of our family, but he's also part of this town and of your life." Lucky turned to Lucy, resting his head against her chest one last time. She hugged him tightly, whispering, "I'll miss you, Lucky, but I know you're finally home." As the car disappeared down the road, the town bid farewell to the dog who had taught them all the true meaning of loyalty. A plaque was placed in front of the old house, honoring Lucky's years of waiting. Here stood Lucky, the dog who never gave up, a symbol of hope, loyalty, and love. Though he was gone, his story lived on, reminding Westmont and the world that true love never fades. It waits, it endures, and sometimes, against all odds, it finds its way home.